The silk tie choked me. A perfect Windsor, meticulously tied by a trembling hand. My own. In an hour, I'd be standing at the altar, waiting for her. Chloe. My Chloe. Except, she wouldn't come. The phone call sliced through the morning like a shard of ice. Her number. I almost didn't answer, caught up in the whirlwind of nervous energy. Bad choice. Ethan. Her voice was so calm. Too calm. It should have been bubbling with the same excitement that was thrumming through my veins. Instead, it was a flatline. Hey, babe. Almost time. I tried to inject a playful tone, but the words felt hollow even to me. A pause stretched, thick and suffocating. Ethan. I can't do this. The world tilted. Literally. I gripped the edge of the dresser, knuckles white. What do you mean? My voice was barely a whisper. I can't marry you, she said, each word a tiny hammer blow against my skull. I don't love you anymore. I squeezed my eyes shut, willing it to be a nightmare, a cruel, twisted prank. But the icy grip of reality wouldn't loosen. Chloe, this isn't funny. What's going on? Then came the real bomb, the one that detonated everything. There's someone else, she said, her voice devoid of any emotion. It's Daniel. Daniel. My brother. My fucking brother. I stared at my reflection in the mirror. A stranger stared back. Betrayed. Broken. Humiliated. You're with Daniel? The question was stupid, obvious, but I needed to hear it. I needed to hear the words and to register the depth of the stab. Yes, she said. I'm sorry, Ethan, but I have to follow my heart. Follow her heart? My brother? How long? How could this happen right under my nose, without me noticing a single thing? All of these doubts raced through my mind like a storm. The line went dead. I stood there, dumbfounded. The call ended and the phone fell to the floor. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just stared, numb. Moments later, a frantic knock on the door. My parents? They knew. Daniel had told them. Their faces were a mask of forced composure. Ethan, son, we need to talk. Their first concern wasn't for me. It was for the wedding, for the guests, for the embarrassment. I can still hear their voices and feel the anger that came after. We need to calm everyone down. Maybe it's for the best, son, my father said, his voice lacking sympathy. I thought she was perfect for you, my mother said, trying to remain calm. But if she is doing this, maybe there is a reason. We don't want to marry someone who doesn't love you. The words hit me hard. They were all the same. I went to my room and was overwhelmed with rage. That's when the tears came. I cried and cried until there was nothing left. And then, the final twist of the knife. I found out later. They helped them. My parents, the people who were supposed to love and protect me, had actively encouraged this. They thought Chloe was too good for me. That Daniel, the golden boy, deserved her more. They'd even promised her financial support if she chose him. I had no one. My fiancé, gone. My brother, a traitor. My parents, complicit. My entire world, reduced to ashes in a single devastating morning. I left. I walked out of that venue, out of that town, out of that life, and I didn't look back. Every memory felt like a physical wound, and I couldn't breathe in that place anymore. I sold everything I could, packed what little remained into my beat-up car, and drove. I drove until the familiar landscapes blurred into the unknown. I landed in Portland. It wasn't a grand plan, just the first place that felt far enough away. A small, anonymous apartment became my refuge. I found a job at a local coffee shop. The first few months were a blur of loneliness and quiet desperation. I didn't tell anyone where I went or how they could find me. I even changed my phone number. I thought of all the people at the wedding. I tried to remember what their faces looked like and how they would react, but I stopped myself. I didn't want to think of them. Sleep was my enemy. Every night, the memories would come flooding back. Chloe's smile, Daniel's easy charm, my parents' empty reassurances. The feeling of betrayal was a constant gnawing ache. I started seeing a therapist. Doctor! Anya Sharma was patient, kind, and infuriatingly good at her job. Slowly, painfully, I began to unpack the years of accumulated baggage. The constant comparisons to Daniel, the feeling of never being good enough, the suffocating pressure to live up to my parents' expectations. I started to paint again. I hadn't touched a brush since high school, but something about the act of creating, of channeling the chaos in my head into something tangible, was therapeutic. I painted the darkness. I painted the rage. I painted the grief. And slowly, tentatively, I began to paint the hope. After 2 years, the edges of the pain had dulled. I had new friends, a life that was mine, built on my own terms. The silence from my family was deafening, but I preferred it that way. I was healing. I was almost whole. Almost. The knock was unexpected. I wasn't expecting anyone. Peering through the peephole, my breath hitched. A ghost from the past, standing on my doorstep. Chloe. She looked, shattered. The polished veneer was gone, replaced by hollow eyes and a haunted expression. She was thin, almost gaunt, and her clothes were rumpled. I looked for a second before I was filled with rage. Ethan, she whispered, her voice hoarse. Rage surged, raw, visceral, overwhelming. I wanted to slam the door in her face, to scream, to make her feel the same pain she had inflicted on me. But something in her eyes stopped me. Desperation, fear, something else, something I couldn't quite name. What do you want, Chloe? My voice was cold, devoid of any emotion. She hesitated, then blurted out, I need your help. My laugh was bitter, humorless. My help? After everything? You have some nerve. Please, Ethan. Just hear me out. She looked up at me with those shattered eyes. I relented, reluctantly. 5 minutes. I stepped aside, letting her shuffle into the apartment. It was small, simple, but it was mine, and the very air seemed to tense as she invaded my space. She stood awkwardly in the middle of the living room, her gaze darting around, avoiding mine. Life with Daniel. It's been a nightmare, she said, her voice trembling. The words were barely audible. He's controlling, emotionally abusive, unfaithful. The golden boy. The charmer. The one everyone adored. A monster behind closed doors. I should have felt vindicated, but all I felt was a cold, detached sense of nothing. We got married right after. She trailed off, unable to meet my eyes. We have a child, Leo. But things, they've fallen apart. My parents, who had once been so eager to support her, had turned on her when she stopped meeting their expectations. They saw her as a trophy wife, but when she proved that she was more than a trophy, they pushed her aside. I'm trapped, Ethan. Isolated. Afraid. She started to cry, silent tears streaming down her face. I'm planning to divorce him, but he has money, connections. A mean streak. He'll ruin me. He'll take Leo away. And then came the plea. The reason she was really here. I need you to testify, she said, her voice thick with emotion. About your family. About how toxic and manipulative they are. It could strengthen my case. Help me keep custody of Leo. She was asking me to reopen the deepest wounds of my past, to dredge up all the pain and betrayal I had fought so hard to overcome, all to help the woman who had broken my heart and the family that had discarded me. No, I said, the word clipped and final. Her face crumpled. Ethan, please. For Leo. He doesn't deserve this. You made your choices, Chloe, I said, my voice hardening. You knew exactly what kind of person Daniel was. You chose him. You let my family manipulate you. Now you have to live with the consequences. I was wrong, she sobbed. So wrong. I see that now. But Leo, not my problem, I said, the words feeling like shards of glass in my mouth. Get out. I stood there watching her go, feeling nothing but a cold, hollow emptiness. A small part of me felt satisfaction for telling her no. She was gone, but the storm she had stirred up was just beginning. The silence didn't last. 2 days! That's all I got? Then the texts started. Somehow, she had told people about her visit. Word spread like wildfire. Old friends, mutual acquaintances, even distant relatives. They came at me from all angles, armed with their righteous indignation and their complete lack of understanding. Selfish, bitter, cowardly, not man enough. The words stung, even though I knew they were coming from people who had vanished from my life after the wedding. People who had never bothered to ask how I was doing, who had never offered a word of support or sympathy. They felt they had a right to lecture me. One text message hurt more than the rest. From Melissa, my ex-maid of honor, the one who was supposed to be by my side at the wedding. I always thought you were the better choice for Chloe, but maybe your family was right. You are weak. They had no idea what I had been through. They didn't care. They just wanted me to fix a problem that wasn't mine to fix. I ignored them, as best as I could, but the whispers, the accusations, they burrowed under my skin, festering like an infection. And then there was Leo, the innocent child caught in the crossfire, the one who didn't choose this mess. The thought of him, growing up in that toxic environment, haunted me. I spent sleepless nights, tossing and turning, wrestling with my conscience. Did I owe Chloe anything? No. Did I owe Daniel anything? Absolutely not. But what about Leo? Then, a couple of weeks later, came an email from Daniel. It was a surprise since we hadn't spoken in years. But I wasn't surprised by what it said. It was exactly what I expected from him. I heard Chloe came to you for help, it read. It's a huge mistake if you get involved. Stay out of family matters. You'll regret it. Short, cold, threatening. The audacity of the man. After everything he had done, he still thought he could dictate my actions. He didn't apologize for anything. He simply ordered me to stay out of his business. I was infuriated. I stared at the email for a long time, my fists clenched. I wanted to respond, to unleash all the pent-up rage and resentment that had been simmering inside me for years. But I didn't. I knew that was exactly what he wanted. To provoke me, to draw me back into the drama. I deleted the email, but the unease remained. The message felt like a warning. And then came the phone call. My mother! After 2 years of silence, I hesitated before answering. What could she possibly want? Ethan, honey, it's Mom. Her voice was strained. What do you want? I said, my voice flat. I'm so worried about Daniel. About Chloe. About Leo. That's their problem, Mom. Not mine. But Ethan, you have to understand. Daniel is going through a lot. He needs our support. He had my support, and he threw it away. You have to be the bigger person, Ethan. For the sake of the family. The phrase grated on my nerves. Family? I said, my voice rising. You call what we have a family? You chose Daniel over me. You helped him betray me. Don't talk to me about family. Ethan, that's not fair. Fair? You want to talk about fair? You encouraged Chloe to leave me. You promised her money. You thought she was too good for me? How's that for fair? The line went silent. Just stay out of it, Ethan, she said finally, her voice cold. You'll only make things worse. I am staying out of it, I said. I want nothing to do with any of you. I hung up. My hands were shaking. The conversation had dredged up all the old wounds, all the old resentments. I was exhausted. Then a new wave of contact. Every few days, Chloe began sending me emails. At first, they were desperate pleas, begging me to reconsider, emphasizing how much I could help her and Leo. I ignored them. Then, she started sending pictures. Pictures of Leo, a chubby-cheeked toddler with bright, curious eyes, smiling, laughing, playing, innocent, vulnerable. The pictures tore at me. I didn't want to see them. I didn't want to feel anything. I wanted to shut it all out, but I couldn't. Leo's face haunted me. He was a living, breathing reminder of the mess I was trying to escape. I hated Chloe for sending them, for manipulating me, for using her son as a pawn. But I also couldn't deny the impact they had. The phone call from Mike came out of nowhere. We hadn't spoken in years, not since the wedding. He was one of Daniel's closest friends. "Ethan, man, I heard about what's going on," he said, his voice hesitant. "Yeah? Look, I know things are complicated, but you should help Chloe. For Leo's sake," I bristled. "It's not my problem, Mike. Come on, Ethan. You can't just let a kid suffer because of what Daniel did. It's not that simple." "Yes, it is. You need to be the bigger person. Step up and do the right thing." I wanted to scream. "You have no idea what you're talking about. You weren't there. You don't know what I went through. I know you're hurt, man, but this isn't about you. It's about Leo. And what about me, Mike? What about what I need? Don't I deserve to have peace?" The line went silent. "Just think about it, Ethan," Mike said finally. "That kid needs you." He hung up. I felt sick, betrayed, even by people I hadn't talked to in years. Everyone wanted me to be the hero. Everyone wanted me to sacrifice my own happiness for the sake of someone else. No one cared about what I wanted. The pressure was building, relentless and suffocating. Family, friends, even strangers, all urging me to get involved. The pictures of Leo tugging at my heartstrings, the guilt gnawing at my conscience. I started having panic attacks. Shortness of breath, chest pain, a feeling of impending doom. I couldn't eat. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't think. I felt like I was teetering on the edge of a precipice, one wrong move away from plunging into the abyss. "Doctor?" Sharma urged me to focus on self-care, to set boundaries, to protect my peace. But it was so hard. The voices were so loud. The guilt was so heavy. I sat down and made a list. Pros and cons. Reasons to help, reasons not to. Help. Leo's well-being potential to remove him from a toxic environment eases my conscience. Could prove I am not my brother, don't help. Reopens old wounds. Invites my toxic family back into my life. Risk of being manipulated, potential legal complications, sacrifices my peace. The list was overwhelmingly weighted towards don't help. But the first item on the help list, Leo's well-being, outweighed everything else. I talked to Dr. Sharma again. She listened patiently, without judgment. "Ethan," she said, "you have to remember that you are not responsible for their choices. You are not responsible for fixing their mess. You have to protect yourself first." "But what if I can help Leo?" I said. "What if I can make a difference?" "You can care about others without sacrificing yourself," she said. "There are other ways to help. You don't have to jump into the fire." Her words gave me a glimmer of hope. There had to be a way to help Leo without destroying myself in the process. I decided to make an anonymous report to Child Protective Services. It wasn't a perfect solution, but it was the best I could come up with. I would provide them with all the information I had. Chloe's testimony, my own experiences with my family, the pictures of Leo, the emails from Daniel, the fears I had for Leo's well-being. I would tell them everything, and then I would step back. I would let them investigate. I would let them decide what to do. It wouldn't be easy. There was no guarantee that they would even take the report seriously. But I had to try. For Leo! I spent hours writing the report, carefully detailing every incident, every concern, every fear. It was painful, reliving the past, but I knew it was necessary. I had to make them understand the toxic environment Leo was growing up in. I finished the report and sent it. And then I waited. Days turned into weeks. I didn't hear anything from CPS. I didn't expect to. My family, however, was relentless. My mother called again, pleading, threatening. Daniel sent more emails, more accusations. Even my father got involved, sending me a text message telling me I was disgracing the family. I ignored them all. I blocked their numbers. I deleted their emails. I focused on my work, my friends, my painting. I tried to rebuild my life. Then, one day, I received an email from Chloe. A single line. Thank you. And I'm sorry. That was it. No explanation. No details. Just those 6 words. I didn't know what to make of it. Was she thanking me for the CPS report? Was she apologizing for everything she had done? Or both? I would never know. I can't change the past. I can't undo the pain. I can't erase the betrayal. But I can choose my future. I can choose to heal. I can choose to forgive. I can choose to be happy. Maybe someday Leo will know what I did. Maybe someday he'll understand. But even if he doesn't, I know I did the right thing. I protected him, and I protected myself. And that's all that matters. Months passed. I settled into a rhythm. Work, painting, therapy. The panic attacks lessened, the nightmares faded. I even started dating again. It was tentative, awkward, but it was progress. Then, a phone call from an unfamiliar number. I almost didn't answer. Ethan? A woman's voice hesitant. Is this Ethan Blake? Yes, I said, my heart pounding. Who is this? My name is Sarah Miller. I'm a social worker with Child Protective Services. My breath caught in my throat. This was it. The moment of truth. We received an anonymous report concerning the welfare of a child named Leo Harrison, she said. We've conducted an investigation, and we'd like to speak with you. My mind raced. What did they find? What were they going to do? I made the report, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. We know, she said gently. We appreciate you coming forward. We understand you wanted to remain anonymous, but we need your cooperation to ensure Leo's safety. I hesitated. I had wanted to stay out of it, to avoid getting dragged back into the drama. But this was about Leo. Okay, I said finally. What do you need? Sarah was young, but she had a weariness in her eyes that spoke of countless battles fought and lost. We met in a sterile office, the air thick with unspoken tension. Thank you for meeting with me, Ethan, she said, her voice professional but kind. I know this isn't easy. What did you find? I asked, cutting to the chase. She took a deep breath. The situation is complicated. There's no evidence of physical abuse, but there's a clear pattern of emotional neglect and manipulation, both from Daniel Harrison and from his parents. My blood boiled. I knew it. I knew they were capable of anything. Chloe Harrison is also struggling, Sarah continued. She's isolated, overwhelmed, and suffering from depression. She loves Leo, but she's not in a good place to care for him. So what are you going to do? I asked, my voice tight. We're recommending supervised visitation for Daniel Harrison, she said. We're also recommending that Chloe Harrison attend therapy and parenting classes. And we're exploring other options for Leo's long-term care. What kind of options? I asked, my heart pounding. Foster care is one possibility, she said. We also look for relatives who might be willing to take him in. A wave of panic washed over me. Foster care? With strangers? That couldn't happen. There's no one else, I said, my voice desperate. Their families are just as bad. Sarah looked at me, her expression knowing. There is one other option, Ethan. You. My breath caught in my throat. Me? You're Leo's uncle, she said. You're the only stable, responsible person in his life. We believe you could provide him with a safe, loving home. The thought was both terrifying and exhilarating. Taking in Leo wasn't an option, not with my career and my life in Portland. I had to take in Leo. I don't know, I stammered. I'm not ready. I have a life here. I understand, Sarah said. It's a big decision. But please, think about it, Ethan. Leo needs you. She handed me a card with her contact information. Take your time. But don't wait too long. Leo's future is at stake. I walked out of the office in a daze. The world seemed to spin around me. Take in Leo? Raise him as my own? It was insane. Impossible. And yet, I couldn't shake the feeling that it was the right thing to do. I thought about Leo, his bright eyes, his infectious laugh, the innocent child caught in a web of toxicity and betrayal. I thought about my own childhood, the constant comparisons, the lack of love and support, the feeling of never being good enough. I didn't want Leo to experience any of that. I wanted to give him a better life. I spent days wrestling with my decision, talking to Dr. Sharma, talking to my friends, weighing the pros and cons. The cons were overwhelming. I would have to give up my life in Portland, my job, my friends. I would have to move back to the town I had sworn to leave behind. I would have to face my family. But the pros were even stronger. Leo's well-being. A chance to break the cycle of abuse. A chance to finally do something good. Finally, I made my decision. My return was quiet. A car full of boxes and an aching heart. The town felt smaller, more suffocating than I remembered. I found a small house on the outskirts of town, far enough away from my parents but close enough to Leo. The first few weeks were a blur of paperwork and legal battles. I had to prove to the court that I was a fit parent, that I could provide Leo with a stable and loving home. My parents fought me every step of the way. They didn't want me to have Leo. They wanted him to stay with Daniel, even though they knew he was a terrible father. The betrayal cut deep, but I refused to back down. I was fighting for Leo's future. The day I finally got custody of Leo was the happiest day of my life. He was scared, confused, but he clung to me like a lifeline. "It's okay, Leo," I whispered, holding him close. "I'm here. I'll take care of you." He looked up at me, his eyes wide and trusting. "Uncle Ethan?" "Yes, buddy," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "I'm your Uncle Ethan, and I'm going to be your dad now." He smiled, a small, tentative smile. "Okay." Raising Leo was the hardest thing I've ever done. He was traumatized, withdrawn, and prone to emotional outbursts. I had to learn to be patient, to be understanding, to be loving. I enrolled him in therapy. I read books on child development. I sought advice from other parents. Slowly, gradually, Leo began to heal. He started to laugh again, to play again, to trust again. He filled my life with joy and purpose. He gave me a reason to get up in the morning. He was my son. Facing my family was inevitable. The first encounter was with my mother. She came to my house uninvited, demanding to see Leo. I refused. "He's my grandson," she said, her voice shrill. "I have a right to see him." "You lost that right when you betrayed me," I said, my voice cold. "You're not welcome here. You're being unreasonable, Ethan," she said. "You're punishing me for something that happened years ago." "It wasn't just something that happened years ago," I said. "It was a pattern of behavior, a lifetime of putting Daniel first. I'm not going to let you do that to Leo." I closed the door in her face. Next came Daniel. He showed up drunk, demanding to see his son. I stood my ground. "You're not fit to be a father," I said. "You're a danger to Leo. He's my son," Daniel screamed. "You can't keep him from me." "I can and I will," I said. "I'll do whatever it takes to protect him." I called the police. They took Daniel away. Time passed. Leo grew. He thrived. He was happy. I started to heal. I found a new job, a new community, a new life. I even started painting again. This time, the paintings were different. They were filled with light, with hope, with joy. I learned to forgive myself. I learned to forgive Chloe. I even learned to forgive my parents. Not completely, but enough to move on. One day, I received a letter from Chloe. She was doing better. She was in therapy. She was working on herself. She thanked me for taking care of Leo. She said she knew she had made mistakes, but she was grateful that he was safe and loved. I wrote back, I told her I forgave her. I told her I hoped she would find peace. One afternoon, I was painting with Leo. He was laughing, his face smeared with paint. "Dad," he said, "can I have some more blue?" Dad. The word resonated through me. It was a label of love, of connection, of responsibility. I looked at him, his bright eyes shining with happiness. And I knew with absolute certainty that I had made the right decision. I had saved Leo, and in doing so, I had saved myself. I saw peace. I don't know what the future holds, but I know that I'm not afraid. I have Leo. I have a new life. I have peace, and that's enough.